Bienvenidos, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Larissa Enríquez Vázquez y seré la moderadora en esta.
Welcome, my name is Larissa Enriquez Vázquez. I will be the moderator in the behalf of UTEC and our organizers. We would like to thank your attendance in our second edition of Educamp. And we hope that you and all the information that we see in our talks and in the discussion tables and webinars will be enriching of value and great utility for all of you. Before starting, we would like to say that by the end of the presentation, we will have a round of questions and answers. We would advise you to place your consults and questions in the chat box. This is about the skills for autonomous learning at universities. We have Vanessa Toribio from FONDEP. We have Julian Ross from Montpellier Supagro. We have Miriam Hernández from UNAM and Jose Carlos Vázquez from the Foundation of Telefónica. Each speaker would have 10 minutes of presentation. By the end, we would leave 20 minutes for the question session. We will recover all of the doubts that you have described in the chat box. To have these questions, we ask all of the speakers to be respectful of the time. We are going to start with Vanessa Toribio, and before granting the speech for her, I'm going to talk a little bit about her bio. She has a degree in psychology from the Female University of the Sacred Heart. She has a master's degree in FONDEP. She's currently coordinator of the Identification and Formulation Unit of FONDEP, and she's a columnist for the digital magazine Education. Yes, I want to thank Mirna, Juliet, all the organizations, and it's a pleasure to contribute with my experience in this table. I'm going to introduce a PowerPoint and some ideas that I wanted to share. Go ahead with the PowerPoint. A first idea that I wanted to rescue is related to the autonomy, on which this pandemic has made that several countries implement the strategies that would enable us to continue. The first task was that we wouldn't stop with the education. There were diverse difficulties. We knew that the impact could be minor, but the year 2020 is going to be remembered as the year that the way of teaching and learning changed completely, and that's what we're hoping. In that way, the pandemic has generated the autonomy for students and us as teachers, and it made evident that we didn't educate ourselves in that direction. That's a great lesson that we're having. And we want to, of course, have greater autonomy, organize their time, undertake challenges. A third idea that I would like to rescue is that the autonomy is not related only from the demands. It demands us to strengthen our capacities to interact with others. And we have decisions according to each purpose. And a final idea that I would like to rescue is that the autonomous management, we need to develop that in all the stages, and it is part of our life cycle. Next, please. According to the experience that we have by working with teachers, I can tell you what's the legacy. What are the challenges of superior education? And I think that if we have the problems in the schools and the universities, the problems of students is going to be greater. So I think that one of the main barriers need to do with the many schools in the universities. And I think that we had a proper way of looking into to understanding all of that. In a national monitoring that we have performed, we find that 72.7% of teachers propose activities where students follow procedures without a possibility to reflect regarding their answers. That means that they only limit to that. And people, some teachers establish the step-by-step, and they monitor, but to open-ended questions, or closed questions, sorry. And we know that lots of teachers that are not happy with what's happening. We have lots of challenges, and definitely are part of the basis that we require. If we're looking that these glass is half empty, we know that this is alarming, because we need to see other side. We need to see the half full glass. We also need to consider that there's a percentage of teachers that do have a critic way of seeing things, and they do perform monitoring. And it's good because we need to know the percentage of teachers that are setting the example, because they can share what they know with their colleagues. We can, at the same time, in a way, know about these practices that we have in Piura, right? We have a project that describes this, and we're going to introduce a video, and we will continue with this. Thank you. Let me know if you see the audio. We're not listening to the audio. Okay. I'm thinking that we need to wait for a moment, because we need to check the audio for a moment. I don't know if maybe you can help us with the repetition of the audio, with the activation of this. Well, I will tell you a little bit of my experience. We need to go into the click on the link that says display with audio. Yes, that's for you. So this is an experience that I have performed with the students, and it is good that we cover this. And in this experience, what we see is how these strategies promote students to mobilize their learning, take decisions, and be reflective about this process. And that's fundamental for all of us. I think that I could share myself and reproduce the video, maybe, if you guys can't. Okay, so our highest, yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Okay, so our higher inspiration are our students. We are in the San Fernando School in the Chalaco district of Morropón in Piura. So we have an agile methodology that consists in having the student as a leader in their own learning. The project comes out of the finding the students that are not committed to their own learning. An objective is to improve learning in our students, particularly in reading comprehension, the problem resolution, and teamwork when it comes to social abilities as well. The meaningful part here is that we find different styles, rhythm of learning, and each group of work is going to pick a leader and that will be the master. I have chosen Angie because she is responsible. I have chosen my friend Chukang because he does everything that he can. And talking about that, the teacher will introduce like a group of topic. And by each topic, they choose a product. And they know about the tasks that they would want to achieve according to the interests of the society. So as a group, you introduce a theater play. Another group does an exposition by using technologies. So this group basically work in a slower way, but that's the way of the teacher. That's how the teacher goes through them, and that's how they reflect. And after seeing the presentation of the students, that's how they show the time. And each member of the team work with different skills because all of them work together. And in that way, we impose each of our students, we encourage them. As a director of this school, we bet on the education of our students.
Muy bien, solamente para cerrar, mencionar.
So, to mention this example, we have other experiences that are quite valuable, and I think that we can start rescuing. What we can see is that the autonomy has a certain degrees. On one hand, we have one area, we know that the competency of the learning is focused on the students. They need to do that in an awareness way. They need to do this as best as possible that they can. They need to learn that everything that they need to learn, it needs to be given by providing their goals, thinking where do they need to go to be efficient, and they need to continue when it comes to the goals that they have set, and a lot of confidence on their own and a capacity to self-regulation, like in the way of these activities. We have a dimension that it's related to the possibilities that students at the same time learn by doing and by obtaining their own decisions to face the challenges that they require. And that's the other face of the coin, because that's the essence of the focus of high competitions. Why am I mentioning this? Because if they have these limitations, they're not going to be able to grant their activities in the dependency of the authority, and in that way we need to continue strengthening the teaching contrary to what we know, right? And I close my presentation with that, and you can continue with the autonomy in the students, and probably in the round of questions we could answer that as well. Thank you, and we continue. Thank you, Vanessa. Sorry. I know that time is short. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Julian Ross. He is an engineer in the digital pedagogy. He's in charge of the ITC for education team and pedagogical practices at Montpellier Supagro, which is an agricultural engineering school in France. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you. Thank you. And first of all, I would like to sorry, thank you all the team, and a special thanks to Jose for inviting me to this event. Even if it's only by video, maybe next year in Peru, I would love that. I will share my screen. Oh no, it's not this good one. Sorry for that. Okay. It's okay?
Sí.
Do
Yes.
you have the presentation? Yes or no? I don't know.
Sí, sí se ve la
See?
presentación.
Okay, good. So, just a few words about Montpellier Supagro in Francia. We are a French public institution devoted to higher education and research in agriculture, food, and environment. We are widely open to international issues and partnerships. Montpellier Supagro uphold a long tradition of international training and research. On its campuses, 23% of the student body is composed of international students, 60% of whom come from no French-speaking countries. The signing of academic exchange agreement with about 100 institutions all over the world has opened a broad range of mobility opportunities for students and researcher professor. I would like to start by talking about student self-learning skills. We believe very much in the work of Edgar Dale on the learning pyramid and Benjamin Bloom on taxonomy. During these courses, tutorials and practical work, we develop situations for the students to enable them to be at the heart of their learning. If we look at this pyramid, students in lecture only retain 20–30% of the courses. The same goes for the expert lectures, whereas it is more than 70% to 90% if the learning is active. So we use, for example, reverse or overtune pedagogy. They are no longer, the teachers are no longer the knowers in these courses, but become tutors, advisors, experts, capable of accompanying the students without giving them solution. To achieve this, we work on the syllabus, particularly on the importance of pedagogical alignment, the concept of Pedagogical alignment was first introduced by John Biggs in 1996, who spoke of constructive alignment. Pedagogical alignment occurs when the learning objectives are consistent with the introductional activity and assessment strategy. This is also referred as the pedagogy consistency. With the help of digital technology, educational activities have become very rich. The creation of autonomous digital teaching resources provides students with the self-training necessary for learning. Of course, this work must not be done in isolation from a course. At Supergrow, a self-training activity are supervised by explanation and debriefing phases. The latter is essential for the student's understanding of a field, theme, issue, for example. During a session where students have to do research, play an escape game or a serious game, watch video, go through written content, there is a debriefing time organized by the teacher in the form of question answer, debates in the form of group activity like bar camp or word cafe. In this way, there is a real gain in the appropriation of the content. Students to develop their bibliography, research skills, or on an issue are accompanied by our team in Digital Resources Center, as well as using the school Pedagotech. Pedagotech is like a resource bank. As shown in the picture here, you will see a digital resources bank on digital agriculture in partnership with businesses chair. This Pedagotech lists video resources, online documents, conferences on two axes. One digital and the other is agricultural. Students can enrich their knowledge with these inputs selected by the teacher. The student involved in an ecosystem of pedagogical place to allow them to meet to work individually or in groups. These places are digitally equipped to meet the new needs of online collaborative work on video conferencing. We are currently developing new educational courses that create a continuum between training and research, in particular with the new courses called the Junior Research Lab. Finally, I wanted to show you some examples of the resources of modules that we integrate into our training. First is the Mooc. The Mooc for us are fully integrate into the training courses. Students have to follow them, are coached by the teachers and experts, and have to take on the role of community manager to accompany the general public. They manage the forum, organize the live and the communication of the community. The skills acquired during this exercise will be used by the student in other projects. For example, knowing how to animate debate, knowing how to animate a community, knowing how to identify resource person in their environment, knowing how to analyze fact and acquire critical thinking skills. And last but not least, understanding how the media and social network works. The second example is escape game. We have to create escape game in particular to develop transversal skills. For example, with two games, the first one on learning to learn and the other one on interculturality. The strength of these resources is that they immerse students in a playful environment. We also use serious game to teach subjects. We have recently completed 2 online courses on fishery conservation and environmental law. These games were developed with the support of specialist providers. Third, we have self-assessment. We use self-assessment through criterion references grid or what we called the student learning contract in groups or individual that are associated with skills to be developed. Each student have
Un
to
minuto,
assess.
Julian.
Sorry?
1 minute.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay, great. I don't know. Each student have to assess the other student in the group, which is per assessment. And they also have to assess themselves. The teacher monitors the progress of individual student and group. This technique also helps to limit the free rider phenomenon in a group. And the last one is project activity. We have a student engineering project begin in the first year of the agricultural engineering courses and continue in the second year with 350 hours of dedicated work, including in the course timetable. And the junior research lab in Supergro is an 8-week teaching unit dedicated to learning through research. Students can choose their research theme, benefit from the support of senior researchers, and encouraged to develop code training. Thank you. Gracias por tu participation and merci.
Muchas gracias, Julian.
So I
Thank you.
stop. Thank you.
Vamos un poquito sobre el tiempo. Voy a presentar
Okay, so we are getting short on time, and we're going to introduce Mirna Hernandez. She is doctor in pedagogy by the University of UNAM, and she is the director of projects in transformation in digital transformation, educational education, and distant education in UNAM. Go ahead.
Okay, ya se escucha, ¿cierto?
Cierto.
You can hear me, right? Yes. Okay. Before doing anything else, I know that I'm gonna run with time, so I want to thank just to participate here in 2021 as UNAM. We are quite happy, and in particular by the coordination of innovation and learning, we are happy by being here. The presentation is going to be to continue providing and solving anything that that has been provided to solve all this situation, right? To solve the vision that we have from coordination of autonomous learning. And in a university like this, we have diverse versions, diverse ways of notifying this. We have some resistance to perceiving this autonomy with the students. And what I'm introducing is should we solve the answers from this session. And we start with the definitions. We're talking about autonomy to learn, and in that way, we understand that the basic definition from the Real Academy, we know that it's a condition for certain things. And if we transfer this to the environment in education, we know that the student doesn't need anybody. Some teachers don't like us to say this, but we have another definition about the capacity of the student to establish rules. That in our case will be methods, time, content for their own learning. So that will be, of course, within the limits of the curriculum. And of course, we are going to introduce this, but how do we have autonomous learning here? Sorry? We need this to be in presentation because we're seeing it is maybe we need a big presentation, not the short one, because we see the clock right now. Oh, I don't think I can. Let me stop sharing.
Ahí se ve la presentación.
I don't know if you can see the presentation, but it's not in presentation mode. But okay. I don't know if you can. The thing is that I have two screens, so I'm gonna have to increase the size for you to see it. Is that clear? Okay. Okay, so thank you, Larissa. So from these definitions, we talk about the autonomy for learning. The next definition is autonomous learning. And the most relevant thing would be that if we consider the capacity of people to adapt this active role, and I would like to point out about that. It's about what they like to learn. So in that way, we have new knowledges, we incorporate strategies, and we develop skills that would enable to have a self-regulation for their own learning. That means that we are considering, in difference of the visions, the traditional vision, that will be quite vigilant for the which is important, but we also consider the procedure. So, since you are considering how do we develop the new autonomous learning, we could say that in addition to discovering the what, we are thinking about that in addition to acquire new knowledges regarding the learning that we're using, what we're looking for is that the student learns to learn. Since it's important how to do it, we need to offer tools for them to improve the way that they learn. And that's why we're offering some skills in a way that the students have knowledge on their way of learning and improving. They can improve the product as well. So that moving forward, that enables us to continue living in the process. And we can apply the benefits in both topics. Why is it important to implement the autonomous aspect? There's many reasons, and I propose this. because in the universities it is indispensable.
Estas
It's an
habilidades
obligation to perform these abilities that will enable students to learn how to learn, and one of them is oriented towards autonomous learning in a way that they can take their own decisions. Now, it is important. Why? Because the autonomous aspect enables the learning through life. We're thinking about that the autonomous aspect needs to take place within the school and drives through people that are part in these institutions and throughout all the time. Now, this autonomous learning considers the awareness of the student on how to learn, and of course, this would enable to control your own process. Like Vanessa was saying a couple minutes ago, before it was important to have autonomous learning. Now, in this emergency situation, it's even important because we have proven that for institutions that haven't entered in this way of learning, for 2021, we have learned that autonomous learning it's quite important and fundamental in the development of people. We're asked about the factors that do not enable us to show the autonomous learning, and we consider that something that doesn't enable us to do it is that we don't know how to do it. And I would like to add maybe say that they don't want to do it because sometimes institutions have not found a way on how to do it. Particularly because we need to break some institutional comfort zone because institutions that are big as the UNAM, it's very hard to break that. And that would take other institutions probably a year up to transforming this in 5 or 10 years. We need to break that comfort zone. That's complicated. Some teachers don't like to change. We have considered that, of course. And of course, it's related to the control of the teachers. We like um, as teachers, as guides, we need to have the control of what the student needs to do. And when it comes to students, I think that in a way, they I think that it's easier to have to be in a passive mode than activating and move forward and be take charge, right, of our own decisions. We were asking about initiatives for an educative model, education model that could be based on autonomous learning. The recommendations from our visions would be take advantage of the push from the pandemic and not come back. Maintain the new models, educational models in the situations from the pandemic. Do not go back. We have further ways where going back to the new normality means to go back to the old practices. We don't think that. We need that. It is important to take that push and do not come back. We need to keep the trends. Yes, thank you. And we need to consider these ways of training teachers because it could lead teachers in a convinced manner that would help us in a way to strengthen the features of that student. Within the initiatives, we are considering as well, we are proposing to develop abilities that is going to help us promote that autonomy. In the end, like we said, it's going to help us know that the student is establishing their own rules regarding methods, time, content, who does he want to work with, what the strategies are the most convenient. And let's remember that particularly in these times, the emotional factor is quite important. With that, thank you for your attention, and I am open to any questions that you may have.
Ya casi estamos llegando.
We're always almost finishing.
De la Fundación Telefónica.
And we have José Vázquez, we have the Foundation Telefónica, and he works in Peru. He's an advisor in education and the leader in the digital program in Bacash. And go ahead, José. Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I want to thank for all the information that I had. It's been a quite good information, and I want to share my screen. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you can see. Yep. Go ahead. It's in presentation mode. Thank you. Okay. I wanted to start sharing with you what we're doing in Fundación Telefónica Movistar and why are we here. Fundación Telefónica is the social arm of Telefónica, of Movistar in Peru, and actually we have been working for more than 20 years, and the axis of our activity is education. We believe that we can manage to get that more Peruvians and people throughout all the world can live in a solidary mode. And that's why we worked in alliance with the government, the Ministry of Education, and some universities, educational digital program that actually attends more than 800 children throughout the country. We have presence in more than 1,000 schools in all the regions of the country. Having said that, I would like to comment our vision of learning and educating in the digital era. What we do is education, and to do that well, we need a digital framework, something that would help us see where are the educational resources, the way in which we have a proposition regarding the activities in schools. We have also noticed that many things that we do in schools it makes lots of sense in university. That's why we reiterated our participation in this event, which is promoted for university teachers by Pro Futuro, by Charge of Pro Futuro in Spain. There's an association between Telefónica and Spain and Pro Futuro. We had the role of having a framework to learning, to start educating in the digital area. This is a book that it is free. I would like to, for you to visit Pro Futuro Education. You are going to be able to find everything that I'm going to tell you, but in a greater detail. And it's a book, and it's going to help you a lot. So we had the task of learning what's the education and regarding the, we did an analysis with the competitions of the teachers throughout the world, and the conclusion is that we need to understand that education and learning in these times is completely complex. It is so complex that it transcends pedagogy, it transcends the school, it transcends university. Learning in this time is about realization and also survival. Nowadays, we know that education is what we need in order to understand how to defend ourselves from COVID, how to survive. So we know that education is what we need, an aspect of civility where we need to move forward. So we need this to navigate in a digital way as well, in a digital world. We know that sometimes we lose autonomy, right? Sometimes we don't notice that the technological advances are leading us through an area, and we don't have the control of that. So that's something that we wanted to share. I think that it is extremely complex to learn in these days, like I said. And not only that, but teaching and learning, it's for all your life. It's not something that would be for an hour or two. So that's why this framework for educating and learning in the digital era, we have a proposal organized on the identities. How are you as a citizen? What's your stand in the face of knowledge? Or how do you connect with others? So in that line, the three identities work with the global framework of competitions to learn in the digital era. And we have a look of the individual as citizen. You need to take a role. You need to be a committed citizen with your immediate surroundings, with your family, your community, your country, with the world. You need to be able to solve, to um, be able to solve the situations of life. Um, Now that we live in a world of change, we need to continue being out of our comfort world. We need to be resilient. And we continue talking about that. And also the students need to be related on how do they acquire knowledge. Basically, how do they create knowledge? How do they produce knowledge? And still, we are focused on the consumer as well. On the day-to-day of people, we know that we have a consumption of different ways, different frequencies, different ways of rigor. You're also a producer of knowledge. And we do that each time that we have a like on the networks, each time we publish a photograph, picture, each time you comment regarding an academia article. So naturally, we are consumers, producers of knowledge. And it is important that that generation of knowledge comes with a depth, because that's what we are living right now. We're living in a world that it is quite superficial, and that makes us not being clear about what we need. We need to have an idea of not only being willing to knowing and to read and to write. We need to know more than that. Reading doesn't mean that you understand what you're reading or that you express clearly. Unfortunately, the basic school levels that reach the reading comprehension are percentages that are quite low. And of course, this has caused some problems because we have been working in 2 years in Peru without the schools because of the pandemic.
Un minuto, José.
So in a way, this is not solving the problems. So it is important how the student faces the education and the ability to learn. And in that way, we have the same way about connections. the student has these three roles under, and regarding the teacher, I just wanted to mention we have developed that in the website in Profuturo. The processes that the teacher needs to be for the student to be autonomous, that means to flip the class, have a flipped classroom. It responds about transferring knowledge, and it needs to be anything that comes to consumption of information needs to be done autonomous, and all of that, right? Regarding the all the digital courses that we have, I'm sure that we could have an opportunity to to deepen this information, and you're going to be able to find any options of learning that would enable to strengthen the ways that I will trying to share with you. So thank you.
Al contrario, muchas gracias, José.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, all the four speakers. Sorry that I've been cutting you off. And I think that we needed to get through this round of questions. We don't have much time. I'm gonna have to have like one question for each one of you, okay? That we have been receiving. I'm gonna start asking Vanessa. Vanessa, what are the strategies for effective strategies to promote autonomy, and how do you assess that? If you can be as brief as possible, sorry. We need to make sure that students have identified, I'm going to be very brief, that they understand what they have learned. They can do, for example, some mind maps. We need to accompany students for them to share their own strategies. Because in addition, they would probably need a support, but then they would be independent. We could have personal portfolios. I think that that's quite rich because it enables us to see what's happening. The students can identify what's happening. They document their progress, and in that way, that lets them evaluate what's happening. The most important thing is the dialogue, the synchronous and asynchronous aspects. And I think that in a way that makes you reflect with the students, right? Give them the opportunities for them to perform their own diagnosis, accompany them, assist them, not replacing the teachers, but basically providing value. If the science continues progressing, we know that we probably going to have lots of failures, but it's part of the process. We can learn from that, learn from this process. You can go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Julian, we have a question for you regarding the methodology to encourage autonomy that you use. They're asking us if you can adapt that according to the context, according to the region in which it is applicable.
Yes, sure. In the study of Supergrow, we have different moments on the field, and we can adapt different resources with filming or with create a serious game on the field. We can create resources, pedagogical resources, directly adapt to the field and to the skills for the future. We do that. And as I said, we have long-term project, long-term situation issues for students to develop disciplinary skills and transfer sorry, other skills. And it's important to link the field and the training and the research. We have a continuum in the triangle with the company, with the fields, and the training in the school and the research in the lab. It's very important. It's okay? You have an answer?
Perfecto. Muchísimas gracias,
Okay,
Julian.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, Mirna, we have a question for you. Any tip or suggestion for teachers to be able to encourage autonomous learning? Sorry, I didn't have time to say that in the presentation, but like I was saying, in the area, in the university, we are working in a way to transform students in autonomous students. And we think that the fundamental aspect is to train the teachers as autonomous teachers. Why? Because if they understand what's that concept, what's the behavior that we're looking, the advantage, the awareness, how could you improve this? I think that with that would enable us to have an awareness, and they can perform their work by training autonomous students. So to summarize, we need to promote training programs for the teachers for them to know about this. Thank you. Okay, Jose. We have questions for you. I'm going to try to sum up these questions in a single one. So we have a question regarding if the work that you're doing in Telefónica, is that inserted in the objectives of the Ministry of Education in Peru? And are you actually doing it in particularly to reduce the gap problems that we have from the pandemic? Yes, 100%. Actually, being a leader with the public politics, it's one of our goals. And we have these competitions that talk about students to be able to perform with advantage. And with that, we work with the Ministry of Education, and we worked in that line. We work with the technology, and we have alliances with the Alegría, where we actually have some interventions. We want to invite you for Educared to find their networks. We're going to be able to find much about our intervention. How do we collaborate with the systems, particularly in the vulnerable areas? Thank you. I have promised 20 minutes of questions and answers, but we don't have time. Sorry. I'm sorry for that, but thank you. Thank you all the four speakers. Thanks, Vanessa, Mirna, Julian, and Jose. Thank you for your participation. And we're quite happy to learn about your projects. And gladly, I'm sure that we're going to be able to adapt them to our own environments regarding everything that you have done. So thank all of you and the participants that have been here, and all the people that have been providing their questions as well. So with that, we will be closing this session. Without, it is safe to mention that we want to have you in the next days of this event, and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Hasta luego.